This is not an essay. This is a demand. You, personally, should watch Andor. Andor is the fourth live-action television show to be produced within the Star Wars franchise under Disney's vast and constantly expanding media umbrella, a spin-off to one of the most profitable films ever made, a prequel for a character whose fate was transcribed in the opening scroll of a 1977 blockbuster. During the battle, rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. In 2016, they told that story. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, was the first of two Star Wars spin-off films produced by Disney in the years between the sequel movies, to capitalize on the franchise which they had purchased for $4 billion. It was, reportedly, a troubled production in almost every aspect, so troubled, in fact, that an uncredited Tony Gilroy, best known for the Bourne movies, had to be brought in for rewrites and reshoots. The movie that was produced as a result was remarkably well received, probably the best film of the Disney era, lauded for its cinematography, darker tone and ensemble cast. This is the movie in which we meet Cassian Andor, played by the inimitable Diego Luna, a hero of the rebellion, spy, scoundrel, rogue.
I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
Upon release, questions began flying about his history, about his past, so it should come as no surprise that Disney, riding on the high of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, decided that they needed to explore that. What was pitched was a buddy cop style show, featuring Cassian and K2SO as they would carry out various tasks for the as yet still burgeoning rebellion. But when the idea reached Tony Gilroy, the show morphed and evolved into what it is now, into Andor. This is not an essay, this is a love letter. Andor is not, as its name might suggest, actually about Cassian Andor's backstory, about the fight that he's been in since he was 6 years old. It of course it functions as the main plotline through which we view the story, but it is not the focus. Andor is about the rebellion. With the original trilogy, we witness Campbell's classic hero's journey, the archetypal tale of a hero who fights against injustice and collapses an empire. With the prequel trilogy, we witnessed how republics can fall and become the empire the hero must fight against, how democracies can be infiltrated and subverted by tyrants and fascists.
So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause.
Andor bridges the gap between the prequels and the original, showing us how the Empire under Palpatine progressed from the disintegrating Republic into the pure evil Empire that we see in A New Hope. It is more terrifying than ever, frighteningly bureaucratic and competent, capable of oppressing an entire galaxy simply from the clean white boardrooms of the ISB. We also see the sparks that will become the flames of revolution, as the Empire's cruelty and oppression inflames the population to rise up against them, paving the way to the rebellion that Luke, Leia and Han end up joining in the original trilogy. It is in these more focused looks at the process and the people of Star Wars where Andor shines brightest. We see for the first time the actual day-to-day of the Imperial thought machine, the lives of the people working within the system, the cogs in the machine. Cyril Khan, a man that might have been a hero in a different setting, becomes the symbol for young men drawn in by fascism's promise of purpose, and shows his true colours as a needy, pathetic, true believer in the Empire's justice. Dedra Meero is introduced to us as simply another viewpoint through which we can observe the Empire's ever-shifting security regulations, a woman in a male-dominated workplace that we sympathise with, all the way up until she tortures a fan-favourite character. They both feel more human, flaws and all, than almost any of the Imperial goons we've ever seen in the franchise's history, and they aren't alone in that. Ferrix is the first planet in Star Wars that truly feels like a real place, a mining town brimming with life, with its own cultural customs and people with unique motivations and personalities, nonetheless connected by their community, by their home. Marva Andor, Cassian's mother, former scavenger and community leader, with boundless love for her son and for her planet. Mon Mothma, who appeared for one scene in Return of the Jedi and again in only deleted scenes for Revenge of the Sith, is given far more depth and characterization than she had ever had before, forced to make unenviable choices for the sake of this burgeoning rebellion. Saul Guerrero, back from the Clone Wars, bridging the gap in his characterization between that show and Rogue One, a representative of political infighting, as one who believes only he has the clarity of purpose to fight the Empire and win the war. Luthen Rael, progenitor of the Rebel Alliance, thespian, spymaster, the best character to come out of Star Wars in a very long time. A man who understands the brutal cost of rebellion, the sacrifices one must make to achieve victory against the might of an entire galactic empire, and who is willing to make those decisions no matter what.
I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see.
And then there's Cassian Andor himself. This is not an essay, this is a treatise on art. I'm constantly in awe of the sheer beauty of craft on display in this show. From cinematography to sound design, there is a passion for the craft in every scene and every frame. The lighting, special effects, editing, directing, all impeccable. The sets are wonderfully designed and lived in. Star Wars has always had this philosophy of the ancient sci-fi, that places and objects must feel old and used, and Ferrix fits that to a T. It isn't just a planet, it's a home. Other locations push the Empire's aesthetic of unnatural cleanliness into an art form. The ISB boardrooms are terrifyingly, clinically sterile. Narkina 5's prison is so hostile and claustrophobic. The acting here is phenomenal. Of course, you expect that when you have people like Stellan Skarsgård and Andy Serkis, but almost everyone is on that same level, giving it their all. Diego Luna, Kyle Soller, Denise Gow, Genevieve O'Reilly, Fiona Shaw, even bit players and one-scene wonders like Forrest Whitaker and Anton Lesser play their characters to perfection. And of course, we can't forget about Nicholas Britell's soundtrack, a musical score that elevates every scene in the show. I mean, look at the title themes. Each episode's a little different, but all of them carrying the same melody, all of them coming together like the voices of rebellion, to create a tune that cannot be drowned out. But above all, it's the writing that's the star of the show. It captivates you and drags you along, slowly, gradually building climax after climax. The dialogue and monologues are incredible, and multiple lines that are so poignant and beautiful little writing tricks and repeated motifs that stick with you long after you finish.
I won't have peace. I'll be worried about you all the time.
That's just love. Nothing you can do about that.
The entire series is kickstarted when, while he's looking for his sister, two corporate security guards acting as cops for the sector harass and accost Cassian, and in the process of escaping, he kills one of them by complete accident. The other begs for his life, and Cassian immediately shoots him to protect himself. This is the impetus for everything that happens next, as Cassian returns to his home planet of Ferrix, and the eye of the Empire turns to focus its ire on this previously unimportant planet. Everything that happens to him is merely a consequence of the actions that preceded it, as the plot conspires to drag him from the life he wants to live to the life that he should lead. As corporate security bears down on Ferrix looking for him, Cassian escapes the planet, but he can't escape those consequences. To get enough money, he agrees to participate in a heist on an Imperial base on the planet Aldhani, but even as he is further radicalized by his experiences, he refuses to be dragged into the fight. Even the efforts of the token idealist, Karis Nemik, and his manifesto barely change his mind. What he doesn't understand, what his mother tries to tell him, is that nowhere in the galaxy is safe. The ripple effects of the heist spread throughout the galaxy as the first true spark of rebellion, the first time anyone has dared to stand up to the Empire's might and win, even as Imperial leaders try to snuff it out. But by closing the fist tighter, they only incite more insurrections, as the laws they pass have consequences. The ISB suspect that a concerted effort to topple the Empire has come into being, featuring Cassian, while the rebels search for him because of a desertion that stinks of betrayal. And yet, ironically, Cassian is imprisoned under an assumed name for a crime he didn't commit, by the laws that his actions have indirectly caused. In that prison in Narkina 5, Cassian is pushed to the brink, now his position's reversed as he has to try and convince the block leader Kino Loy, themselves a prisoner, to revolt, using his own experiences to radicalize them and start a riot. And as he escapes, once again, this time fully aware that nowhere can be safe, that the Empire's tendrils reach into every aspect of galactic society, he calls back home. His mother is dead. As he watches the sunrise, at last, all the forces of the show converge, all roads leading back to Ferrix for Marva's funeral. This is not an essay. This is a eulogy. One of the most important aspects of Andor is the fact that we know how it ends. Every story begins with a promise to answer the questions presented, to solve the mystery it gives us, to reach the conclusion. Andor, like all prequels, has its answer pre-written, its future set in stone. We know the end of the story. All we lack is the journey it takes to get there. Cassian returns to Ferrix as Dedra Meero, acting as the most superior Imperial officer, tries to draw him out with his mother's funeral, thinking he will lead her to a revolution he isn't even a part of yet. Meanwhile, Luthen arrives, hoping to kill Cassian before he can leak any sensitive information, as the community, the members of the town we've grown to know over the course of the season, react to both Cassian's return and Marva's death. She might be gone, but she left an indelible mark on the community, and words, for all of them, a eulogy for herself. And posthumously, through his friend, she tells Cassian,
"I love him more than anything he could ever do wrong."
The Empire has done as all fascists do, tried to tear away their culture and customs, minimizing crowds, pushing back the time past midday, manipulating and exploiting the funeral to try and catch Cassian. But Ferrix fights back, and as hundreds fill Rick's Road at noon, we hear a funeral march. Do you hear that? It's the main theme. In universe, the main theme of Andor is a funeral march. But of course it is. We all knew how it was going to end. On a distant planet far away from home, watching a false sunrise, burning his life away to give someone else the chance for a better future. We know the end of the story. We know that all of these characters are destined to be nothing more than footnotes in the vast history of the galaxy, that they will never be able to see the end they've been fighting for. 2 people died during the heist on Aldhani without even knowing that they succeeded. Nemik was crushed by a trolley of Imperial credits before he could even see the cause which he believed in come to fruition. Kino Loy leads a prison riot, knowing that they must cross a vast ocean to escape, and he can't swim. Saw Gerrera dies in an Imperial attack on Jeddah, his last thoughts of the people he's lost. Even Luthen, for all his planning and scheming, for all that he's sacrificed, we know that no one will remember him, because no one, not in the original trilogy nor in Rogue One, does. And he knows that.
Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude.
But it's okay. It's okay. Because the rebellion goes on. Because all of these people sacrificed themselves for the rebellion, the plans for the Death Star made it to Princess Leia. Waiting at the end of it all is Luke Skywalker and his X-Wing facing the Death Star. It is the redemption of Anakin Skywalker and the death of the Emperor. At the end of this shadow, we know there is light. There is a new hope at the end of all of this.
The day will come when all these skirmishes and battles, these moments of defiance, will have flooded the banks of the Empire's authority, and then there will be one too many. One single thing will break the siege.
And so, as the music ends, we know that though Marva is dead, her memory lives on in her son, in her community, in her words, in her belief in something greater. In the rebellion. This is not an essay. This is a manifesto. Andor is not a complicated show, let's make this clear. Everything that happens occurs logically, following on from everything else. Where it excels, where it surprises, is in its understanding of characters, of empires, of politics.
That is the real trick of the Imperial thought machine. It's easier to hide behind 40 atrocities than a single incident.
As maligned as politics is in Star Wars, I don't think any work has ever been as interested in it as Andor has been. It is revolutionary in the political sense. Star Wars has always been anti-fascist, but Andor is the first story that is interested in the specifics. It shows in excruciating detail the banality of evil, presenting a reconstruction of the evil empire by showing us the kinds of people who support fascistic governments, making them human, sympathetic even, but still monsters who support oppression, murder, torture, genocide. We see how it rules, how it keeps power. We see how corporations align themselves with the state because capitalism cares not about ethics, only about power. And yet, the moment they stop being useful, the empire takes their power and subsumes them. We see how they use colonialism on both Aldhani and Ferrix, taking over planets and robbing them of their beauty and natural resources, oppressing the local peoples and obliterating their culture. And we see the horrors of a prison industrial complex, its very clear and real connections to the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. And these aren't just fictional problems, they're real things happening in our homes, right now. Throughout the course of the show, it becomes clear that nowhere is safe, that no one is free unless everyone is free. And so it's only when we stand up and come together, commit to collective action, that is when we become free.
There is one way out, right now. The building is ours. You need to run, climb, kill. You need to help each other. You see someone who's confused, someone who's lost. You get them moving and you keep them moving until we put this place behind us.
What we learn is that fascism is a broken and miserable ideology, one that apes the aesthetics of power without possessing it.
Power doesn't panic.
It is a short-sighted, simple-minded idea, a hopeless pipe dream of control, and by merely existing, it plants the seeds of its own defeat. The inane cruelty of the Empire is its own worst enemy.
The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
Because it's simple. Nemec's manifesto words it best.
Freedom is a pure idea. It occurs spontaneously and without instruction. Random acts of insurrection are occurring constantly throughout the galaxy. There are whole armies, battalions that have no idea that they've already enlisted in the cause. Remember that the frontier of the rebellion is everywhere, and even the smallest act of insurrection pushes our lines forward.
For all of Palpatine's machinations, for all his planning and scheming, the Empire only lasted 20-odd years. He looks only for the heroes, but he misses the forest for the trees, will not even contemplate the ordinary civilians that recognize and oppose his corruption.
There is a wound that won't heal at the center of the galaxy. There is a darkness reaching like rust into everything around us.
As all the opposing forces of the story search for Cassian at Marva's funeral, they fail to realize the real revolution that is being whipped up before them, as Marva calls upon her friends, her family, her community, the planet she loves and cares for with all her heart, and with her final words gives them the only push they needed, the only words that needed to be said.
Fight the Empire!
And the crowd explodes. The revolution has begun. This is not an essay, this is a demand. This is not a demand from me, it is a demand from your soul, from your heart, from your community. It is a demand that I need not make because we, all of us, already believe in it. We are not heroes. We are not Jedi or Sith. We cannot simply do or do not. We must try. Rebel.